One night, Pete and I went on a domestic dispute. A union plumber who worked long hours finally figured out that some guy down the hall was checking the pipes under his wife's kitchen sink while he was out, so they got into it. By the time we arrived, she had a split lip, and he was icing his hand. It wasn't much of an investigation. Sarge was in the area and swung by when we asked for someone to take pictures of her face. He snapped some photos. All the while, she was chirping about how it was all over between them and she was moving before he got out of jail. At the word jail, he tipped over.
The taco truck was exactly where Ernie said it would be. I waited around until a short line subsided, then walked up to the window. A man who could have been anywhere between 40 and 60 squinted at me. His paper hat sat on his head like a 1940s soldier might wear it, but the gray stubble on his cheeks ruined the military image. He wore a plastic name tag that read, Jesse. "Getcha?" "I'll take a euro," I said. He stared back, without a word. Then I remembered what Ernie said about ordering a special. With extra lettuce and sauce.
Perfectly still, unmoving, poised for something I didn't yet understand, the form of her body pressing against the sheet draped over her and hanging down to pool on the floor. She waited. Sure, that sounds dramatic. I know it does. But that's how it felt when I raised up the garage door and found her there, amid the perfectly ordered tools and supplies that spoke to my father's passion and his obsession. The rattling sound of the door opening filled my ears, and the long-forgotten but familiar scent of that garage washed over me.
After shift, I went home to the small house I still keep on the edge of town. Despite the size, it still feels emptier and emptier these days. Like I can hear echoes of past years every night. In her time, Magdalena filled the house with music and laughter and cooking. Seemed like half the time, several of her students were at the kitchen table being tutored extra. No more. My house is clean. It smells of coffee and sometimes a little bacon. It is quiet. I never much went in for television, and I can't bear to listen to music anymore. So it's just me and the sounds of barely living that fill the silence. The creak of the stair, the hum of the refrigerator, or the hissing steam of the iron as I press my white shirts and crease my jeans. Clean is all I have left.
"Look, kid, you think we can't trace calls?" I shrugged. "You think all calls aren't recorded?" My heart jumped in my chest. I fought hard to keep the thumping under control, but it raced along at breakneck speed. "They recorded calls?" The officer nodded his head as if in answer to my silent question. "All calls are recorded and held for 24 hours, kid." "Oh, Jesus." The officer reached up and absently scratched his neck. "Now, when we pull the tapes for your phone and check the calls from today, what do you think we're going to find?" My lip quivered. I opened my mouth to reply.
Titus looked uncomfortable. "I joined the army as early as I could, and I have seen 13 years of service. In that time, I have been a good soldier. I fought the enemy, protected my brothers, obeyed my superiors, and all the while, the only question I ever asked was how. How do we fight and win?" He put away his stone and wiped the length of his blade with a lightly oiled rag. "Now I have stumbled on a different question, and I can't get it out of my mind." When he spoke, his voice dropped to a whisper. "Why, Appius? Why do we fight?"
Casey Edmonds never gave up on writing Sugar about anything she could. There was always something to harp on. Sugar's hair was a mess, and Casey had a bow for hers. Casey got new clothes for school. Sugar did too, but hers were from the thrift store, and everyone knew it. And even though Casey lived in a trailer, just like Sugar did, the Edmonds was a double wide. Sugar didn't care most of the time.